minimalists.
And I wanted to read these 6 questions to ask before buying to catch up. We've got a lot of new patrons right now. And so I thought we would catch you up if you don't know about the 6 questions to ask before buying. By the way, we have a version of this on our website. If you go to theminimalists.com/resources, you can download a free wallpaper with these questions on it. Yeah. And it doesn't have the expanded version of the questions, but these are 6 questions to ask yourself before making any new purchase. Number 1, who am I buying this for? The things we own don't tell the world who we are, but sadly, they often communicate who we want to be. When this happens, we mistakenly let our possessions shape our identity. We showcase our favorite brands in a futile effort to signify our own individuality. See this shiny new thing? This is who I am. Our logos make us feel unique, just like everybody else. The brands themselves aren't the problem, though. We all need some stuff, so we rely on companies to create the things we need. The problem arises when we feel external pressure to acquire, as if the new trinkets were a shortcut to a more complete life. That external pressure needn't be a sign to consume. If anything, it's a sign to pause and ask, who am I buying this for? Is that new thing for you? Or are you buying it to project an image for others? If it's truly for you and it makes sense to purchase, then by all means, go ahead, get it. Let's not deprive ourselves of the things that enhance our lives. But if you're buying things just to signal a sort of consumerist equanimity, then you're getting in the way of the freedom you're attempting to purchase.
Man, Anthony over at Ramsey.
Yes.
He was telling us about I think it was a Gucci bag that he got.
Anthony O'Neill. We did so you can actually check this out. Anthony O'Neill, The Table is the name of his show.
Great podcast. Great episode. But he was talking about how he spent, I forget what it was, thousands of dollars on this Gucci bag, backpack.
Yes.
And the whole idea was he was imagining what people would say to him and how they would look at him when he purchased that. And
who am I buying this for?
Yeah, and he spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you pretty much of the story, some cliff notes here. He goes to work, he's carrying it. People, Anthony, man, that's a nice bag, man, looking cool. Walking around, people, oh, where'd you get that bag at? Like, everyone's doing that. And then he just had this revelation of like, wow, like, I literally bought this bag for attention. And I could put that money to use in such a better way than just getting people's attention. Yes. So he went and he returned it, which I thought was awesome. But yeah, the detailed stories on the podcast, it's a pretty good story.
He could have used all 6 of these questions for that purchase.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm on page 63 right now of Love People Use Things. Number 2, will this add value to my life? I don't own many things, but everything I own adds value to my life, meaning each of my belongings, from my car and clothes to my furniture and electronics, functions either as a tool or adds aesthetic value to my life. In other words, does it serve a function or increase my well-being in a meaningful way? If not, it's not worth buying. Back to the Gucci bag. So let's ask that question. Does it serve a function? Yes, it does. Sure. Is that the best bag for that function? Probably not. Right. A Gucci bag probably isn't the best bag.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. But there is a function with being noticed, right? There's a function of drawing attention.
Yes.
So the question is it the right type of function that you are looking for?
Right. And if you want to seek attention and you want to do it through a Gucci bag, at least admit that, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're being true to yourself and you're being true to others. And I'm not saying that you're morally wrong for doing that. You're not. But quite often we justify by saying, oh, yeah, it's a nice backpack. But really it's like, I'm looking for a shortcut to attract eyeballs onto me. Number 3, can I afford it? This is the 3rd question to ask. If you have to charge a new purchase to a credit card, you can't afford it.
Amen.
If you have to finance it, you can't afford it.
Amen.
And if you're in debt, you can't afford it. Just because you can buy something today, that doesn't mean you can actually afford it. If you can't, it's better left on the shelf. But what about buying a house or going to college? Surely those are exceptions, right? While they might be different debts, and they're better than, say, credit card debt, they're still debt. It's been said for thousands of years that the borrower is slave to the lender, and so it makes sense to pay off any debt as quickly as possible. I know this point of view isn't normal, but normal is what thrust us into our current $14 trillion mess. We'll address many of the misconceptions about debt and the relationship with money chapter, it says here. So, yeah, we do talk about debt in the book, but really the thing to communicate here is, can I afford it? And so if I don't have the money to buy the thing, then I don't buy the thing.
Right.
That's the simple way to look at it. Number 4, even if I do have the money to buy the thing, is this the best use of this money? In other words, how else can you use this money? So the Gucci backpack, Ryan, how else could he have used that money? And when we talked to him about that, he had a dozen answers really quickly. Ways he would have rather used the $4,000, whatever insane amount that he spent on some backpack. If that was still like, oh yeah, this is still the best use of this money for me. Okay, I'm not going to judge you for that.
Sure.
But you will have identified, oh, and then you know what? There are maybe a dozen other ways I'd rather spend this money. Or even if there's one other way you'd rather spend this money, then it's not the best use of the money. In other words, how else can you use this money? What are the alternatives? The songwriter Andy Davis sings a line in his song, Good Life, that succinctly captures our culture's misappropriation of finances. Ryan, you want to sing this line for us?
No, I'm not going to sing it. It's a great line, though. Yeah, we struggle to pay rent because jeans are expensive. I mean, what's he saying?
Yes.
He's like, yeah, you know what? My priorities are wrong, but I got to look good in them jeans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We're struggling to pay rent, not because we're struggling to pay rent, but because we are allocating the money in these places that don't align with the person we want to be. Question number 5 from Love People Use Things. What's the actual cost? As discussed in the introduction chapter, the true cost of a thing goes well beyond its price tag. In business, they call this full cost accounting, but let's call it what it really is. These are the actual costs of owning all the things we think we need. When it comes to the items we own, we must consider the storage costs, maintenance costs, and psychological costs. When we add it all up, we're able to understand the true cost, and often we realize we can't afford it, even if we can afford the upfront cost. And finally, number 6, would the best version of me buy this? And I really think that's what Anthony was struggling with that backpack. This isn't the best version of me.
Yeah.
This is the attention-seeking version of me.
It's a fabricated version.
And attention, he knows that attention is a byproduct of doing something meaningful with his work, with his creativity, with his show, whatever it might be. That gets him the attention. But he gives a talk in front of all these college students or high school students. That's a different type of attention. Yeah. That's earned attention. There is no shortcut. There are only direct paths, right? A few years ago, my friend Leslie stood in her local grocer's checkout line, fumbling with her wallet's zipper, preparing to make an impulse purchase. But then, suspended in queue, she was given time to question the thing in her hand. She pondered the item carefully and asked herself a question. What would Joshua do? That is, if I were in her shoes, would I make this purchase? No, she thought, and promptly returned the item to the shelf. When she told me about her experience, she joked that she wanted to buy one of those WWJD bracelets to help her avoid compulsive consumption going forward. I laughed, but then realized that I too could benefit from making more frequent use of this question, and so could others. To be clear, I don't want you to walk around asking yourself, what would Joshua do? Please don't. Rather, it's a rhetorical question. What would the best version of you do in this situation? If he or she wouldn't buy it, then you know what to do. Pausing to consider each new purchase with these 6 questions seems like a hassle at first, but in time, it's a habit that will reward you and your family with less clutter around the house and more money to spend on what's important to you. After all, the easiest way to declutter your life is to avoid bringing it home in the first place. Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.